This video explores the unsettling case of Taylor Pomaski, a 29-year-old woman whose abrupt disappearance in 2021 sent shockwaves through Texas. What began as a routine missing person case quickly evolved into a chilling mystery involving a former NFL star, a volatile relationship, and a devastating conclusion no one anticipated. There were no cries for help. No neighbors noticed anything unusual. No alarms were triggered, just a brief backyard fire that flared up and died down before daylight. Taylor Pomaski was last seen at her home in Spring, Texas, during a low-key gathering. The night appeared uneventful. What happened next would fracture her family, weigh heavily on the community, and quietly launch one of Harris County's most meticulous homicide investigations in recent years. Taylor had been in a relationship with Kevin Ware Jr., a former NFL player, for several months. Neighbors noted the couple mostly kept to themselves. Friends and family sensed the tension. They could see it, even if they didn't know just how serious things had become. It all unfolded on Sunday, April 25, 2021. Guests arrived that evening for what was meant to be a relaxed night of music and drinks. Attendees recalled moments of laughter, shouting, and a particularly intense argument between Taylor and Ware. She appeared visibly distressed. One guest noted she seemed eager to leave but never did. Another claimed she had been locked in a room for a period of time. By midnight, several guests had already departed. Taylor was never seen again. Her car remained parked in the driveway. Inside the house were her belongings, her purse, phone, and dog, all untouched. No one dialed 911. No missing persons report was filed for weeks. It wasn't a scream that drew attention. There was only silence. Taylor's texts stopped getting replies. She stopped calling her mom, something she never missed. Days passed, and her messages remained unread. By May, her out-of-state parents had already contacted the police. It had been a week without any word from their daughter. The initial report was straightforward. A 29-year-old woman had vanished after April 25th, last seen at a residence on Stallion Brook Lane. What happened wasn't immediately clear. Officers visited the home to conduct a welfare check. At first glance, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. No blood, no forced entry, no indication that Taylor had packed up and left voluntarily. People don't just vanish into thin air in springtime. Located just north of Houston, the area is a wide suburban stretch filled with modest brick homes and neatly maintained lawns. It's typically quiet during the week, but that calm can be deceptive. In neighborhoods like this, people do notice when someone goes missing, but it often takes someone speaking up for it to be officially reported. Initially, police assumed Taylor had left on her own. Not only was her physical well-being uncertain, but several people had voiced concerns about her rocky relationship. Investigators reviewed her previous police interactions, and one incident stood out. Just weeks before the gathering, a report had been filed describing a domestic dispute. She had confided in a friend that she was afraid. She never filed an official report. One of the earliest clues that puzzled investigators was the complete lack of digital activity. No bank transactions, no cell tower pings, no social media logins. Nothing. It was as if she had gone completely offline. In today's world, that kind of disappearance is rarely accidental. The initial timeline was murky. The last confirmed sighting of her was between 10:30 p.m. and midnight. No one recalled seeing her leave the house. There were no records of rideshare requests or outgoing calls. Either the area was too dark that night, or the neighborhood security cameras weren't functioning. Police canvassed the area. Neighbors only remembered hearing shouting and loud music. But then, one woman mentioned something unexpected. She recalled seeing smoke coming from the backyard that night. It looked like a small fire, and she assumed they were just burning trash. She hadn't mentioned it to anyone before. It was a simple statement, but the police made note of it. When investigators returned to the house, they conducted a second walkthrough. This time, they used luminol in key areas like the kitchen, hallway, and the entrance to the backyard. Nothing immediately stood out. There were no signs of rapid bleeding, blood pooling, or drag marks, but something still felt off. The bathroom looked unusually clean. The floor grout had been freshly bleached, yet there was no record of a professional cleaning service. Rather than easing concerns, the absence of evidence only deepened them. It raised even more questions. Who was the last person Taylor spoke to? Who stayed after the gathering ended? And why would someone thoroughly clean the bathroom floor the day after a guest disappeared? Investigators began examining Taylor's circle, who had been at the house that night, who left early, and who had a history with the law. As expected, investigators focused on one individual who seemed connected to everyone involved. Still, from a legal standpoint, it remained a missing person case. There was no body, no confirmed crime scene, and no witnesses to explain what had occurred. All they had was the disappearance of a young woman into the night. While Taylor Pomaski was alive, the police might have recognized the full pattern, but that clarity came too late. Over the 6 weeks leading up to her disappearance, friends, former colleagues, and even distant relatives noticed subtle but steady changes in her behavior. She became slow to respond to texts and began canceling lunch plans without explanation. When she did reply, her tone was brief, detached, and non-committal. Investigators reviewing her messages discovered several deleted conversations, but what remained revealed enough. Taylor was under a great deal of stress at home. She spoke in vague terms, saying things like, "It's just been intense," or "Maybe we're figuring things out." On at least 2 occasions, she admitted she was scared, but never provided specifics. Notably, she never filed a formal complaint. There were no restraining orders or protective measures in place. However, she did make a late-night phone call to a friend on March 28th, about 4 weeks before she vanished. The call lasted just under 5 minutes. That friend later recalled that Taylor spoke in a whisper and seemed disoriented. During that brief conversation, Taylor reportedly said, "If something happens to me, please remember this." She didn't elaborate further, and the call ended quickly. At the time, Taylor's name was already in the police system due to a previous incident. On April 7th, the Harris County Sheriff's Office received a call reporting a domestic dispute. Records show officers responded to the same Stallion Brook Lane address. When they arrived, they found a verbal altercation but no visible injuries or evidence of physical violence. Taylor declined to press charges and refused to provide a written statement. Following standard procedure, the officers left without taking further action. The report was filed and permanently archived. In the days following that incident, Taylor's presence in public noticeably declined. She used to post on Instagram about once a week, but then everything went quiet. Her work attendance became erratic, and she even missed an important civil court appointment, unusual for someone her co-workers described as punctual and dependable. There wasn't a single major red flag, but a series of subtle signs added up. Later, when investigators examined her emails and phone activity, they discovered a recurring draft message in her Gmail account. The message had been opened and edited multiple times in late April. The subject line read, "In case you need to know." Inside the email, one line stood out, "I didn't fall off the radar." The rest of the message was blank, except for the final sentence, "They pushed me." Digital forensic analysts couldn't retrieve earlier versions of the draft or verify if it had ever been sent. The message remained in her account at the time of her disappearance, never deleted, never transmitted. Police brought in behavioral analysts to assess Taylor's risk factors. Based on the available records, her abrupt social withdrawal, vague mentions of fear, growing isolation, and missed appointments placed her in a high-risk category for domestic abuse. This evaluation came only after she vanished. When investigators interviewed her friends, a consistent pattern emerged. Nearly all of them, despite not knowing one another, shared similar accounts. Taylor would express something concerning, only to immediately minimize or dismiss it. She consistently downplayed, normalized, and reinterpreted her fears. Another person noted in their statement that Taylor once said he scared her at times, but she laughed it off, insisting she was just being dramatic. About a week before the party, Taylor had a more candid phone conversation with a former roommate. According to the transcript, Taylor admitted she was considering leaving but needed more time to figure things out. She didn't want to make things worse by acting too soon. Then came the party. Investigators later emphasized one crucial point. Multiple people had heard Taylor express concerns, but none of those warning signs ever translated into concrete, actionable steps. Other than Taylor herself, no one truly understood how serious the situation had become. By the time the welfare check was conducted, she had already been missing for nearly 2 weeks. As investigators dug deeper into her personal relationships and digital activity, a pattern became clear. Taylor Pomaski hadn't simply vanished. It wasn't until after she was gone that people realized she had been slowly deteriorating for weeks. Taylor was officially reported missing more than 10 days after she was last seen. May 9, 2021, Mother's Day, was when her parents finally contacted the Harris County authorities. After over a week of unanswered calls and messages, their concern escalated. Taylor was never one to go silent, but on that day she did. There were no messages, phone calls, or even a social media post for her mother. That silence prompted the first call to the local welfare office. According to the official incident report, 2 patrol officers were dispatched to Taylor's listed address in Spring, Texas. The house was locked, and her car was still parked outside. There were no signs of forced entry. When officers contacted the homeowner, they were told Taylor had left on foot several days earlier and hadn't returned. But when pressed for details, what she was wearing, when exactly she left, and where she was headed, the responses were vague. The visit was logged as a non-criminal welfare check, and the officers departed. It would take another 5 days before the Harris County Sheriff's Office officially entered Taylor's name into the National Missing Persons Database. While the delay wasn't illegal, it severely hindered the investigation. By the time authorities began canvassing the neighborhood, time-sensitive evidence, like surveillance footage from nearby homes, businesses, and traffic cameras, had already been erased. By midday, the Missing Persons Unit had elevated the case's priority, but it was still treated as a standard adult disappearance. This classification restricted the level of resources available. There was no Amber Alert, no coordinated search effort, and no formal interviews beyond close friends and family. Internally, a few detectives voiced concerns. Taylor had no prior history of going missing, wasn't involved in any pending legal issues, and her bank account activity had come to a complete halt. Taylor's phone hadn't been used since April 25th, and it wasn't connecting to any cell towers, suggesting it was either powered off, damaged, or placed somewhere without signal access. This wasn't just unusual, it was complete silence. Still, no procedural thresholds had been crossed. As an adult, Taylor had the legal right to go off the grid, and in Texas, like in many states, adults can disappear voluntarily unless there's clear evidence of foul play. That changed when investigators reviewed the body cam footage from the April 7th domestic call, 18 days before the party. Taylor appears briefly in the video. She speaks softly, stands rigidly, and avoids eye contact with the responding officers. When one deputy asks her directly if she feels safe, she pauses before quietly nodding, saying nothing more. She chose not to file a report. The man involved in the dispute remained mostly out of frame during the officer's visit. That same night, the case was closed. Watching the footage again, this time with the knowledge of her disappearance, gave it a different weight. What once seemed like a minor domestic disagreement now appeared to be a missed red flag. In May, investigators obtained a warrant to access Taylor's phone and Google search history. They discovered her final recorded search occurred on April 24th, just 1 day before she went missing. What to pack if you have to leave quickly? The query had been typed, but never submitted. The search and the case remained open. That small detail carried weight. It suggested she was either preparing to leave quickly or believed she might need to. The total absence of digital activity after her disappearance only made the case harder to solve. Investigators knew that even when adults go off the grid, they usually leave behind some kind of digital footprint, whether it's purchases, ride requests, or passive GPS signals. But Taylor left nothing. Her email remained unopened. There were no password reset attempts, no evidence her name had been linked to a new SIM card. It was complete silence. One neighbor, while canvassing the area, mentioned something odd in the days following the party. Taylor's dog, normally kept indoors, had been roaming unattended in the backyard. This neighbor lived on the west side of Stallion Brook Lane and assumed the owners were simply away for the weekend. On its own, that small detail didn't raise suspicion. But when all those small details were placed into a single timeline, the narrative shifted. The issue was that by the time detectives began piecing it all together, critical evidence had already vanished. Trash had been collected twice, and surveillance footage from the only nearby gas station had already been overwritten. Taylor's recent call history revealed several numbers that were now disconnected or reassigned. Investigators issued subpoenas for all cell phone activity within a 500-meter radius of her last known location between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. in April. Processing that volume of data would take weeks. In a later internal memo, one detective wrote, "We didn't miss the window. We didn't know there was a window." By June, the case was officially reclassified from a voluntary disappearance to one involving suspicious circumstances. With the case reclassified, more resources were brought in: homicide liaisons, forensic experts, and expanded access to digital surveillance data. Still, there was no physical crime scene, no blood, no weapon, and no confession. What they had was a missing woman, an inconsistent statement, and a growing suspicion that something irreversible had already occurred. By June 2021, the language in internal memos reflected that shift. Taylor Pomaski's case was no longer treated as a missing person investigation. Despite the absence of a body, it was now officially considered a suspected homicide. This shift wasn't sparked by a confession or a witness. It came from what the evidence didn't show. The first major step was to revisit the home where Taylor was last seen. Although it had already been checked in early May, detectives returned for a more detailed second search. The initial search was routine visual inspection, consent to enter, and general observations. No immediate signs of a crime were found. But new digital records confirmed that Taylor hadn't used her phone or accessed any of her accounts since April 25th. Combined with mounting behavioral concerns, this prompted the sheriff's office to authorize a forensic team to conduct a more focused examination of the property. The objective was precise. Investigators were instructed to look for chemical residues, accelerants, biological traces, or any alterations to the structure inconsistent with typical wear and tear. They weren't expecting something obvious. They were searching for something that had been deliberately and thoroughly wiped away. Their first focus was the master bathroom. The grout lines in the shower showed signs of being aggressively scrubbed. Chemical reagent tests revealed traces of oxidizing agents consistent with strong bleach or ammonia-based cleaners. That alone wasn't unusual. Many people use such products. However, environmental samples taken from the lower seams of the bathroom tiles contained microscopic remnants of organic material. Later lab analysis confirmed the presence of human blood proteins. The DNA matched Taylor, only trace amounts, invisible to the eye, hidden in the porous surfaces that even bleach couldn't fully clean. It wasn't enough to definitively prove a homicide occurred there, but it was sufficient to reclassify the site as potentially connected to foul play. Prompted by a neighbor's report of a small fire on the night of April 25th, investigators conducted a similar forensic sweep of the backyard. Initially, it seemed unremarkable. Fire pits are common in Texas yards, and outdoor burning isn't unusual. But this time, it mattered. Investigators collected soil samples from a scorched patch near the property line for further analysis. Despite recent rainfall, the vegetation in the burned area hadn't fully regrown, allowing forensic teams to extract soil samples for testing. Lab analysis revealed the presence of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, byproducts of burning organic material. More critically, the soil contained chemical markers consistent with the combustion of synthetic fibers, commonly found in clothing and household fabrics. Elevated levels of calcium phosphate were also detected, a compound typically released when bone or tissue is incinerated. While these findings didn't definitively prove a body had been burned, they effectively ruled out the possibility of ordinary trash being set on fire. The evidence strongly suggested that something biological had been burned. However, the amount of material collected wasn't sufficient to identify its exact origin. There were no intact fragments of bone, tissue, or teeth, but the timing, combined with the lack of any reported burn activity or permits from the homeowner, indicated that this was no ordinary backyard fire. Forensic analysts then turned their attention to carpet fibers taken from the hallway leading from the bathroom to the back door, sending them to a separate lab for examination. The carpet consisted of 2 layers, one appearing recently installed, and the other older, hidden beneath. Embedded in the foam padding of the lower layer were aged fibers containing blood markers that matched Taylor's DNA profile. Though not visible to the eye and not present in large amounts, it was enough to confirm her presence, and something more. No signs of struggle, no weapon, no pooling. One investigator noted in an addendum, "But it's clean in a way people don't clean." When the homeowner was questioned again, their account remained unchanged. Taylor had left the house after an argument. There was no mention of any cleaning, no explanation for the fire in the backyard, and no reasonable justification for the bleached shower or burned residue. Detectives requested mobile forensic imaging to be conducted in both the bathroom and the backyard. UV scans and infrared photography confirmed that there were no visible blood patterns or drag marks. That, in itself, wasn't surprising. The key word investigators began using was containment. If something had occurred, it had been methodically managed and concealed. In this case, the absence of physical evidence had become a form of evidence. At the same time, analysts reviewed what little security footage remained from nearby homes and streets. Most recordings had already been overwritten, but one private camera, 3 houses down, captured a brief flash of light from the backyard during the early hours of April 26. The timestamp aligned precisely with the burn pattern found in the soil. The video didn't reveal anything beyond that initial flare, just the moment of ignition. By this stage, investigators had 3 core pieces of evidence: a bathroom with thoroughly clean surfaces but trace amounts of confirmed blood, a backyard containing burned synthetic and organic material, and a hallway carpet showing blood markers linking both locations. While not yet enough to press charges, the findings significantly clarified the picture. The case was officially transferred to the Homicide Division. With each new discovery, the timeline narrowed, and the margin for doubt continued to shrink. Then, on December 10, 2021, the Harris County Sheriff's Office received a call from a field technician working with a private land management crew. While clearing brush near a drainage ditch just beyond the city limits in North Harris County, the worker noticed fragments of melted fabric and wire entangled with what appeared to be partially buried, charred animal bones. Sensing something wasn't right, he immediately contacted his supervisor. Within an hour, the supervisor reached out to law enforcement. By late afternoon, crime scene investigators were on site. The ditch was remote, overgrown, isolated, and nearly invisible from the nearest road. It sat roughly 25 miles away from the Stallion Brook Lane residence. Upon arrival, the initial visual assessment confirmed the caller's suspicion. The scattered remains appeared to be human. A forensic anthropologist contracted by the county led the recovery effort. The area showed clear signs of having been burned. The remains were fragmented, brittle, and partially calcined, indicative of intense heat exposure. No full bones were recovered. Alongside the bone shards, investigators found melted zippers, deformed grommets likely from athletic clothing, and blackened shoelace eyelets near the debris. Plastic components had warped from the heat. It wasn't a large amount of evidence, but it was enough. The remains were sent to the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences, where forensic odontologists examined the maxillary structure and remaining dental fragments. After 12 days of analysis and comparison, the lab confirmed a match. Dental records identified the body as Taylor Pomaski. Nearly 8 months had passed since her disappearance. The confirmation immediately shifted the scope of the investigation. Now officially a homicide case, detectives re-examined every piece of existing evidence. Scene samples, lab results, and digital records, with new urgency and focus. They also had a clearer understanding of where the disposal had taken place. Though remote and rugged, the recovery site offered tactical advantages for concealment. It was obscured from the road, lacked surveillance coverage, and featured soft ground. Ideal conditions for hiding something meant never to be found. The body hadn't been buried deeply. Whoever left it there either lacked the time or means to dig a proper grave. The burn appeared rushed, unfinished, and uneven. Due to the severe condition of the remains, Pathologists were unable to determine an exact cause of death. There were no ligature marks, no bullet fragments, and no definitive signs of blunt force trauma. Although the skull was fractured, it remained unclear whether the break occurred before or after death. The final autopsy summary offered only one cautious line: homicidal violence cannot be excluded. Investigators overlaid burn pattern data from the backyard with combustion analysis from the dump site, but the time gap made a direct chemical match impossible. Instead, they turned to geographic profiling software and cell tower records from April. When they mapped out activity across both locations, they found a key detail. Approximately 12 hours after Taylor's last confirmed sighting, a cell tower ping from a device linked to her boyfriend placed him in close proximity to the remote disposal site. Though there were no exact GPS coordinates, tower triangulation narrowed the location to within a 2-mile radius, close enough to encompass the ditch. But it wasn't just the discovery of Taylor's remains that changed the course of the case. It was the convergence of two key sites: a residence scrubbed clean with chemicals and a remote location where burned human remains were found. Both were linked by cell phones that moved between them, a lack of alibi, and conflicting witness accounts. As one detective summarized, "We didn't get a confession. We uncovered infrastructure. Actions taken to conceal a crime that no one ever reported." In the following weeks, the district attorney's office convened a grand jury. Despite the absence of a murder weapon, a confirmed cause of death, or any eyewitnesses, they had a body, behavior that defied innocent explanation, and forensic evidence that fit together too well to ignore. Pressure on the case began to build rapidly. Once Taylor Pomaski's remains were formally identified, her body parts were returned to her family. At her mother's request, a private ceremony was held. The public was informed only through a brief press release, which confirmed both the identification and the case's reclassification as a homicide. A quiet, overgrown field that had remained untouched for months had finally revealed the truth. The discovery of Taylor's remains marked a major turning point in the investigation. Detectives could no longer rely solely on behavioral patterns or circumstantial signs of foul play. They now had undeniable physical evidence of death. The next step was proving who was responsible and how it happened. Investigators issued a subpoena for historical location data tied to all of Kevin Ware Jr.'s mobile devices. He was Taylor's boyfriend and the last confirmed person to see her alive. When the data came back, it provided a highly detailed geolocation timeline, with hundreds of data points covering the day Taylor disappeared and the days that followed. The pattern stood out clearly. From late afternoon on April 25th until the early hours of April 26th, Kevin Ware Jr.'s phone remained stationary at the Stallion Brook Lane address. No movement, no interruptions. Then, at 6:13 a.m. on April 26th, the phone began to move. It first traveled west, then turned north, eventually stopping near a rural area off a service road in an unincorporated part of Harris County, not officially part of any city. That location was just 0.7 miles from the ditch where Taylor's remains were later recovered. The phone stayed in that area for 22 minutes before returning along the same route. It was the only visit to that location recorded in the surrounding months. On its own, the data wasn't enough to bring charges. But with no alternative explanation and burn residue found at both the home and the ditch site, the stop became a crucial anchor point in the prosecution's timeline. Investigators re-interviewed witnesses who had attended the gathering on April 25th. Some declined to speak again, while others repeated earlier statements. There had been tension, and Taylor had clearly appeared distressed. One witness recalled something new. Behind a closed door, the argument between Taylor and her boyfriend had escalated. Another mentioned seeing the homeowner the following morning, just after sunrise, using a power washer on the back patio. At the time, it hadn't seemed unusual, but in light of the emerging timeline, it was now considered part of a deliberate attempt to clean up and possibly destroy evidence. Around the same time, jailhouse informants began to come forward. While in pretrial detention on unrelated drug and weapons charges, Kevin Ware was reportedly overheard making vague statements about getting rid of a problem and cleaning it up well. Though the language lacked direct references and specific details, multiple inmates described hearing similar phrases. On their own, these statements weren't admissible as direct evidence, but they reinforced the broader narrative of premeditation and concealment. By mid-2022, the district attorney's office had begun outlining a formal indictment strategy. Despite the absence of a murder weapon, confession, or eyewitness, the combined weight of digital, forensic, and behavioral evidence built a compelling case. The grand jury convened for the first time on July 26. Prosecutors presented cell tower data linking where to the disposal site, forensic analysis showing chemical and burn residue matches between the backyard and the ditch, trace amounts of Taylor's blood in the home, inconsistent witness accounts, evidence of post-party cleanup, and jailhouse testimony suggesting implied guilt. On July 28th, the grand jury returned an indictment, 1 count of murder and 1 count of tampering with a human corpse. With that, Kevin Ware was immediately transferred from federal to state custody. In a brief public statement, Kevin Ware's legal team denied all allegations, asserting there was no direct evidence tying him to the crime and claiming the case was being fueled by media pressure rather than facts. The court issued a no-bond hold, keeping him in custody while the case proceeded. One of the most significant discoveries came from an encrypted messaging app found on a second phone belonging to the suspect. Although the device had been factory reset before police recovered it, forensic analysts were able to retrieve fragments of deleted data from cached memory. Among the recovered texts was one chilling line: "It's done just like we planned." There was no timestamp, no visible recipient, and no confirmed context. But the message appeared in the phone's memory around the same time Taylor went missing, raising serious suspicion. While investigators couldn't definitively link that message to the crime, it was submitted as part of the court's evidentiary file. Still unanswered were several critical questions: the exact cause of Taylor's death, how long her body may have remained at the house, and whether anyone else had helped cover it up. But by this point, the foundation of the case was solid. One prosecutor described it as the convergence of independent anomalies, small pieces that, alone, meant little, but together created a compelling narrative. With the suspect now formally charged and awaiting trial, active fieldwork was halted. Investigators shifted their focus to trial preparation. Taylor's family was informed privately. The district attorney personally called her mother. The only public statement offered was simple but powerful: "We believe Taylor's voice is being heard, even now." With the indictment secured, the investigation entered its final phase, reconstructing the events between Taylor's last known appearance and the discovery of her partially burned remains months later in a rural ditch. That would require more than just evidence. It would require a coherent, provable timeline, a chain of events that told the story Taylor couldn't. There was a narrow window of less than 12 hours. Based on witness accounts, mobile data, and forensic findings, investigators determined that Taylor was last seen at a party in her home on the night of April 25, 2021, at approximately 11:45 p.m. Between that time and around 6:15 a.m. the next morning, several critical events likely occurred: her death, an attempted cleanup, the burning of her remains, and their disposal. Working backward from the final ping of the suspect's phone, investigators identified a brief stop in a remote part of North Harris County, the same area where Taylor's remains were eventually discovered. The phone's presence at the scene for just over 20 minutes indicated a hasty disposal rather than a premeditated burial or methodical cover-up. Back at the Stallion Brook Lane residence, forensic experts had already detected microscopic traces of blood embedded in the shower grout. Though there were no visible pools or spatter patterns, the presence of blood proteins in deep crevices strongly suggested the bathroom had been used to process biological material. Chemical analysis revealed that a high-concentration oxidizing agent, most likely bleach, had been applied 24 to 48 hours after Taylor vanished. Additional plumbing inspections uncovered irregular residue buildup, consistent with the disposal of organic waste through the drains. Sludge samples taken from the P-trap beneath both the bathroom sink and shower revealed the presence of tissue fragments, too degraded for DNA testing but consistent with decomposed organic material. Investigators concluded these findings likely pointed to the cleanup and handling of human remains after death. Along the hallway leading to the backyard exit, no visible blood or drag marks were found, but testing revealed a faint hemoglobin signature embedded in the carpet padding beneath the surface. When consulted, A forensic pathologist told the DA's office that if the victim had died or become incapacitated in the bathroom, the fastest route to dispose of the body would have been through the hallway and out the rear door. Soil tests from the backyard supported this theory. They revealed lingering signs of fire exposure, including polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, and calcium phosphate, both byproducts of burning organic matter. These same compounds had also been found in the remote ditch where Taylor's remains were recovered, though the samples couldn't be matched directly to the bone fragments. Investigators believed the initial attempt to destroy evidence had begun in the backyard but was likely abandoned, possibly due to the odor, poor visibility, or time constraints. This theory led to deeper scrutiny of the suspect's digital activity. Metadata from deleted files on his secondary mobile device revealed communication activity between 3:15 a.m. and 5 a.m. on April 26th. Analysts identified that the suspect had been exchanging encrypted messages with a known associate, someone with a documented criminal history and direct links to the suspect's inner circle. The timestamps on the encrypted messages revealed a coordinated exchange, but after 5:04 a.m., the communication abruptly stopped. No further texts were sent, and shortly after, the suspect's phone went offline. A forensic anthropologist reviewed the condition of Taylor's remains to assist in reconstructing the events. While some bones were fully calcined, others showed little to no thermal damage. The lack of heat fracturing on joint surfaces indicated an uneven, open-air burn, consistent with a hastily built backyard fire rather than a controlled, high-temperature incineration. This supported the theory that the disposal attempt was improvised and incomplete, aligning with the evidence found at the house. To finalize the timeline, prosecutors turned to behavioral analysis. Investigators noted that the suspect never called 911, never reported Taylor missing, and ignored repeated calls and texts from her family and friends in the days that followed. One subtle but significant detail came from a neighbor's security camera: the faint sound of a car door slamming and a vehicle leaving the neighborhood at exactly 6:05 a.m., the same window in which the suspect's phone began its route toward the eventual disposal site. There was only audio, no video footage. The sound of a car door closing and a vehicle driving off coincided precisely with the suspect's first phone ping near the ditch minutes later. The final case reconstruction came from layering different forms of evidence: spatial movement, chemical residue, degraded biological traces, and digital metadata. Though there was no single defining moment, the chain of events was unmistakable: confrontation, violence, cleanup, failed concealment, and eventual disposal. The theory didn't need a clear motive. It only required proof of opportunity, access, concealment, and control, all of which were present. Within the investigative team, the emotional strain was real. The delay in reporting Taylor missing had closed vital windows for evidence collection. But despite that, the fragmented clues, when aligned, formed a coherent narrative suggesting the crime, the cover-up, and the disposal all occurred in a single, deliberate cycle. The fire in the field wasn't the beginning. It was the final act meant to erase everything before it. It was the final act of a story that began behind a closed bathroom door. The case formally concluded on April 28, 2023, nearly 2 years after Taylor Pomaski vanished from her home in Spring, Texas. There was no jury verdict. Instead, it ended with a plea agreement. Kevin Ware Jr., a former NFL tight end and the last known person to see her alive, pleaded guilty in Harris County Court to murder and tampering with a human corpse. The judge sentenced him to 30 years in state prison. No trial took place. No witnesses took the stand. Just paperwork, then silence. The decision not to proceed with a trial wasn't made lightly. Despite the weight of circumstantial and forensic evidence, the prosecution still lacked a confirmed cause of death. No weapon was recovered, no confession was recorded, and no one had witnessed the killing firsthand. Yet the digital trail, forensic evidence, and post-crime behavior painted a complete and damning narrative. Faced with the risk of a mistrial or prolonged appeals due to the lack of a confirmed cause of death, prosecutors chose a plea deal that guaranteed a conviction. As part of the agreement, Ware's defense team waived all rights to appeal and secured a concurrent sentencing arrangement. In return, the court received a formal admission of guilt. The sentencing itself was brief: Taylor's family, present but silent, declined to give a victim impact statement. The Harris County Sheriff's Office officially closed the case following the court proceedings. Later that day, the conviction and sentencing were announced in a short press release. No further details were released. For the investigators who had worked the case for over a year and a half, the outcome wasn't about closure. It was about facts, not emotion. Still, some of the most important questions remained unanswered. Weeks before her death, Taylor had contacted police. She confided in friends about feeling afraid. Her relationship showed clear signs of being high risk, marked by volatility and controlling behavior, but none of it triggered immediate legal action. In hindsight, many of the warning signs that were overlooked could have prompted intervention much earlier. The April 7, 911 call, the skipped appointments, the sudden silence. Individually, they didn't set off alarms. But together, they formed a pattern that became obvious only after it was too late. Taylor's case wasn't unique. Across the U.S., the legal system often falls short when it comes to protecting women in abusive relationships. Without visible injuries or formal complaints, many cases are treated as non-criminal, even when the signs of danger are there. Taylor's case became one of many tragic examples where early warning signs weren't enough to trigger legal protection. In the weeks following the sentencing, numerous local organizations focused on domestic violence prevention used her story to raise awareness. Her timeline, marked by digital silence, sudden isolation, and undocumented fear, was included in training materials and seminars. Her name appeared on flyers, resource guides, and quiet presentations in school gyms, serving as both a lesson and a warning. Family and friends held a private memorial at home. There were no speeches or formal statements. In a quiet moment, Taylor's mother told a reporter, "She kept trying to leave. She just didn't get far." With that, the court formally closed the murder case and entered it into the record. The plea agreement was recorded in the public docket, confirming that Kevin Ware would serve a minimum of 25 years before becoming eligible for parole, a possibility only when he'd be well into his 70s. In the days before she vanished, Taylor had written a draft email titled, "In case you need to know." It was never sent. Only one line remained undeleted. "I didn't fall off the radar." Beneath it, a second sentence lingered like a whisper in the dark. "They pushed me. The system finally listened. But it was far too late." This story unfolds with fear, survival, and disturbing truths hidden in plain sight. A haunting photo made rounds on Instagram, captioned, "Yes, it's real." It captured a young woman in a white top, loose black pants, and black Converse sneakers, her hair casually draped over her shoulders. That woman was Deboni Escobar, and her friends and family would never see her alive again. The image spread rapidly, drawing fascination and dread from people across the internet. The photo was especially chilling because of its link to her disappearance. Reports indicated that it was taken by a taxi driver who was supposed to pick her up after a night at a house party. The location was Highway 85, grimly nicknamed the Highway of Death. Although the image served as a crucial lead, the truth of what occurred that night remained unknown. Deboni Escobar was an 18-year-old law student at the Autonomous University of Nuevo Leon. According to reports, she had a boyfriend and shared a strong bond with her parents, Mario Escobar and Dolores Basaldua, both educators. Adopted at just 1 year old, Deboni was raised in a loving home with a tightly knit family. On the night of April 8, 2022, she left home to attend a party with friends. Everyone expected her to return that night, but she never came back. By 8 a.m. the next morning, after speaking with her friends, her father Mario reported her missing without delay. The last known sighting of Deboni was on the highway between Monterrey and Nuevo Laredo. Following the widespread attention her disappearance received online, her father later revealed that he began receiving extortion calls from people claiming to know her whereabouts, demanding money in return for information. This only added to the family's distress. Based on available information, Deboni Escobar left her home around 11 p.m. on April 8th to attend a party with two friends, Sarai, whom she had known through social media for about 3 months, and Yvonne, whom she had just met that night. By 11:30 p.m., the trio had arrived at a meetup spot in San Nicolas, on Sayan Boulevard Street. A rideshare driver took them to a store where they purchased a bottle of vodka along with other items. It's confirmed that Deboni did consume alcohol that night. After being unable to enter a party in downtown San Nicolas, they decided to head to another gathering and requested a ride through Didi, a ride-sharing app similar to Uber. According to her friends, they booked the Didi at 12:49 a.m. on April 9th and got in around 1 a.m. Their destination was a rented house located in Colonia Nueva Castilla, a neighborhood in the town of Escobedo. They searched for another party since the first one had already ended by the time they arrived. Around 1:10 a.m., they found one at Quinta El Diamante, also located on and Monica Street. Although they didn't know the host, they were still allowed to join the gathering. At approximately 1:30 a.m., Deboni left the party after a confrontation with some guests who accused her of being visibly drunk. Surveillance footage captured her walking away from the entrance but returning shortly after. At 3:45 a.m., security cameras recorded Deboni running out of the party, pursued by a young man who appeared to be trying to stop her. In response, Deboni struck him and attempted to flee. He blocked her path, resulting in a physical altercation. The situation escalated as more people got involved, including Sarai and another young man. Witnesses reported that Deboni even bit some of those trying to restrain her. Between 3:29 and 3:36 a.m., Yvonne messaged Juan David, also known as Hughes, asking him to take Deboni home. Hughes was the same rideshare driver who had dropped them off earlier. Both Yvonne and Sarai requested his help because Deboni appeared to be intoxicated. By 3:54 a.m., David had picked Deboni up. She entered the car quickly and seemed visibly upset. During the ride, her friend was seen speaking with the driver as the vehicle was moving. Through their text exchange, David realized he had the wrong address for Deboni's home and asked her friends to correct it. At 4:17 a.m., another surveillance camera captured what appeared to be an argument between Deboni and David inside the car. In the footage, Deboni was seen making angry gestures, and at one point, David's arm appeared briefly near her chest. Her father, Mario Escobar, believed that David may have attempted to grope her during the ride, which could explain why she exited the car shortly after being picked up. At this stage, suspicions around David, also known as Hughes, were growing. As the last known person to see Deboni alive, the rideshare driver became the primary suspect. Juan David Suarez, a 47-year-old rideshare driver, was the one who picked Deboni up in the early hours of April 9, 2022. He was also the person who took the widely circulated photo of her standing alone on the highway. His criminal record, which included a recent arrest for drug-related offenses, raised public suspicion about his possible involvement in her disappearance. While the Daily Mail reported that Suarez had previously been investigated for harassment and kidnapping of women, these claims were not confirmed by Spanish-language sources. Despite the suspicions, Suarez has not been officially charged in connection with Deboni's disappearance or death, as authorities have yet to find enough evidence linking him directly to the crime. He has been interrogated multiple times, and his vehicle has undergone thorough inspection, but no definitive proof has emerged. Deboni's friends, Sarai and Yvonne, were also initially considered key suspects in her disappearance. They faced heavy criticism from Mario Escobar, Deboni's father, who condemned their decision to leave her alone at night. He firmly believed they should have stayed with her until she reached home safely. However, their statements were consistent with surveillance footage and WhatsApp messages, which ultimately cleared them of involvement. In their interviews, both friends said Deboni had been behaving erratically and disrespectfully that night, though they believed she had only been drinking. At one point, they said, she locked herself in a men's restroom and even attempted to jump into a pool. Concerned for her safety, they contacted Suarez, the rideshare driver whose number they had saved earlier that evening, to help take her home. Deboni's friends decided to leave in a separate car after she reportedly refused to go with them and insisted on being alone. Around 3:59 a.m., they also attempted to contact her father multiple times, but he didn't respond. After news of Deboni's disappearance spread, the two friends faced intense backlash, including death threats and false accusations of being responsible for her death. On April 10, 2022, Mario de Cruz Balderas Rodriguez, head of the local commission for missing persons in Nuevo León, announced the formation of an emergency committee dedicated to finding Debony. That same day, her family organized a large-scale search, urging friends, relatives, and locals from the area where she was last seen to join the effort. 9 days later, on April 18th, newly released CCTV footage shed more light on Debony's final movements. After gathering more details from her friends and the driver, authorities began to piece together a clearer picture of the night's events. Just a few minutes into the ride, the driver texted her friends, saying the situation wasn't going well, suggesting Debony was behaving erratically and he was having difficulty managing her. At one point, he expressed concern that he might get into trouble and asked for her mother's phone number when one of the friends pleaded with him to just take Debony home. Her friend explained that they couldn't simply leave Debony alone because they didn't have her mother's phone number. At 4:25 a.m., Debony exited the Kia near the Nueva Castilla neighborhood, roughly 15.5 kilometers from the Via Nuevo Laredo highway. Just a minute later, at 4:26 a.m., the driver snapped a photo of her standing on the roadside and sent it to her friends. In response, they expressed frustration, saying, "Thanks, but we don't know what to do," and explained that Debony had become too difficult to manage, having hit and bitten them earlier that night. Messages exchanged between the driver and Debony's friends also revealed that he had been drinking heavily. Despite repeated efforts, her friends were unable to reach her parents. Although Suarez offered to let Debony charge her phone, she declined and said she didn't care. According to the driver, he handed her the charging cable around 4:17 a.m. This was the moment Debony's father suspected Suarez may have groped her, an incident he believed was partially captured on CCTV. At 4:25 a.m., Suarez informed her friends that Debony had gotten out of the car and refused to return. He claimed she became upset and pleaded to be let out, so he allowed her to leave. When someone suggested he call the police, he said he couldn't because he had already driven away to continue working. By the time he returned, Debony was gone. Suarez also mentioned that she appeared to be in very poor condition and might have been under the influence of something, as she was speaking incoherently. At one point, she reportedly threatened him, saying her parents were lawyers and could have him arrested. Later, investigators obtained CCTV footage from the Alcosa Transport Company. At 4:29 a.m., the video captured Debony walking along the road median and crossing the street. The footage showed her approaching the security booth at the company and peering inside, though she did not enter or ask for assistance. The investigation into Debony Escobar's disappearance intensified following the release of new footage from the Alcosa Transport Company. On April 19th, authorities conducted a thorough search of the company, reviewing additional security footage and inspecting vehicles, but no significant leads were uncovered. Police also searched an apartment complex in the Condino Constitution housing unit, located about 22 kilometers from where Debony was last seen. This location was investigated because her phone had briefly pinged there 2 days before she vanished. Investigators then turned their attention to the nearby Nueva Castilla motel after her cell phone and GPS data showed movement in that area shortly before her disappearance. Despite the effort, the search yielded no results. Meanwhile, Debony's father, along with a group of volunteers, began searching along the Monterrey-Nuevo Laredo highway, a route infamous for disappearances. Often referred to as the Highway of Death or Highway of Hell, this stretch has seen over 100 people go missing since 2021. The search team combed through wells, water tanks, vacant lots, and nearby streams, distributing flyers with Debony's information in hopes of uncovering any leads. Although Debony was not found, the search led to the discovery of the bodies of 5 other missing young women: Ireland, Ingrid, Brisa, Jennifer, and Irma, who had been reported missing between April 15th and April 19th. Some of the victims were as young as 14. Their sudden discovery sparked public outrage, as many believed these cases were only given attention due to the widespread media focus on Debony. This frustration was widely echoed on social media, where people criticized the government's slow and reactive approach, accusing authorities of only taking action when under public pressure. While looking for Debony, they found Ireland, Ingrid, Jennifer, Brisa, and Irma, wrote Barrow Sanchez, the brother of Wendy Sanchez, who disappeared in January 2021. When there's pressure, the state acts. If someone you love goes missing, you have to block roads, raise your voice, and do whatever it takes. The heartbreaking discovery highlighted the ongoing crisis of disappearances in Nuevo Leon. After a 13-day search, a body was found in a disused water tank near the spot where Debony Escobar was last seen, just a minute away. The announcement was made by the Attorney General's Office of Nuevo Leon on the night of Thursday, April 21st. Police were alerted after staff at the Nueva Castilla Motel reported a foul odor coming from one of the unused tanks. According to the hotel staff, the pool area where the tank was located hadn't been used in 6 years. Authorities quickly sealed off the scene, and shortly after, they discovered a body. At the time, they could not immediately confirm whether it was Debony. A team of divers was deployed to retrieve the remains. The body was dressed in a white top and black trousers, the same outfit Debony had been wearing when she disappeared. Her father recognized her by a cross she had been wearing. It was believed that her body had been submerged for nearly 2 weeks. The discovery of Debony's remains raised serious questions. The property where she was found had already been searched at least 4 times using dogs and drones, yet nothing had been detected. This led many to question how search teams could have missed her body when it was so near to the location where she was last seen. Adding to the suspicion was the fact that the body showed less decomposition than expected, given the hot weather in Nuevo Leon at the time, where temperatures ranged between 35 degrees Celsius and 40 degrees Celsius. This discrepancy fueled speculation that Debony might not have died the night she disappeared, but rather days later, and that her body may have been placed in the tank afterward. The motel had been one of the initial search locations, yet despite supposedly thorough inspections, nothing had turned up during the first searches. Police also requested access to the motel's security camera footage, but staff claimed the cameras didn't record and were only used for live monitoring. This raised further doubts. How could Debony's body remain undiscovered for so long? Why hadn't the employees noticed anything unusual for nearly 2 weeks? People questioned whether anyone had seen Debony or anyone else on the property that night, especially with a security guard supposedly present around the clock. After the body was recovered, it was transported to the morgue, where the first of 3 autopsies was conducted on April 22nd. The initial report from Nuevo Leon authorities stated that Debony died from blunt force trauma to the head, leading to a fatal brain injury. They suggested she may have accidentally fallen into the 12-foot deep tank located near the motel pool, possibly after climbing a 2.2-meter, about 7-foot, barbed wire-topped wall. However, that theory quickly began to unravel, as the first autopsy revealed a significant inconsistency. There was no water in Debony's lungs, something typically expected in a drowning case. This suggested that she may have already been dead before entering the water tank. While the official cause of death was listed as traumatic brain injury after submersion, the absence of water in her lungs cast serious doubt on the drowning theory. Adding to the mystery, Debony's personal belongings, including her phone and handbag, were discovered in separate tanks on the motel property. This raised even more questions about the circumstances of her death. How did her belongings end up in different locations? In light of the conflicting accounts and growing doubts, Debony's father requested, and personally funded, a second autopsy. He strongly questioned the theory that his daughter had accidentally fallen into the tank. The idea that she climbed a tall, barbed wire-topped wall seemed highly unlikely. Investigators themselves began to suspect that the only plausible entry point to the motel was through the main entrance, which was open 24 hours a day and located next to a now-closed restaurant. The diner, though abandoned for years, was situated close to the tanks where Debony's body was eventually discovered. The investigation was plagued by issues, conflicting autopsy findings, inconsistent witness statements, and delays in evidence, all of which deepened the mystery surrounding her death. Each new piece of information only raised more questions, fueling public frustration and suspicion. On April 23rd, 15 days after Debony Escobar disappeared and 2 days after her body was found, the Nueva Castilla Motel suddenly turned over 3 CCTV recordings from 2 separate areas of the property. This was particularly alarming because the motel had previously claimed that their cameras didn't record, only provided live footage. The sudden appearance of recorded video sparked immediate suspicion. Why hadn't the footage been shared earlier? What were they hiding? Was the delay due to the motel's actions? Or had prosecutors failed to request the recordings in time? One of the videos, captured at 4:33 a.m., showed DeBoni on camera near the closed diner beside the motel, appearing to run, possibly fleeing from something or someone. The second video, recorded at the motel's toll booth, captured DeBoni passing through at 4:35 a.m. Both this and the earlier footage were found to be 2 minutes off due to the DVR system's time settings. Importantly, DeBoni appeared alone in both recordings. No other individuals were visible. The final confirmed sighting of her came at 4:56 a.m., when she was seen heading toward the tanks near the abandoned restaurant. Before reaching them, she walked in a loop, as if disoriented or unsure of her surroundings. After that moment, no further video or physical evidence was found. The tank area where DeBoni vanished was enclosed by a 2.6-meter-high wall topped with barbed wire, with no clear exits to the street and no access points for vehicles. Another smaller wall, standing 2.2 meters tall, separated the tanks themselves. From where DeBoni was last seen to the first of the 3 tanks, 2 of which were uncovered, the distance was approximately 11.8 meters. It seemed unusual that DeBoni entered the motel grounds alone, especially since no other individuals were captured on camera with her. This led to troubling questions. Was she running from someone? Trying to hide? Why was she circling the abandoned restaurant repeatedly? At around 4:36 a.m., one of the same security cameras caught her peering into the empty diner. It remains unclear whether she ever approached the motel's front desk afterward. The camera tracked her movements from a distance until 4:56 a.m., when she vanished near the vacant lot. Strangely, authorities never explained how she accessed the garden area without passing through the main building, nor why she would be in such a remote part of the property at all. Adding to the suspicions, no surveillance footage was ever released from key areas of the motel, such as the front desk, even though it was reportedly staffed and operating that night. This raises the disturbing possibility that some footage might have been deleted, edited, or intentionally withheld between the time of DeBoni's death and the discovery of her body. Residents of the Constitution apartment complex discovered DeBoni's ID card 2 weeks after her body was found, reigniting questions about the case. The discovery came as police continued reviewing motel footage that showed an unidentified man entering a vehicle shortly after DeBoni was last seen. However, there was no confirmed connection between the ID card and the man in the video. On April 25, 2022, DeBoni's father requested an independent autopsy, the results of which were released on May 12. This second autopsy confirmed that DeBoni had been murdered and sexually assaulted. It revealed multiple blows to her head, effectively ruling out drowning and confirming she was already dead before her body entered the tank. The report also noted signs of sexual violence, including bruising in the genital area. Due to the conflicting findings, a third autopsy was conducted by a forensic center in Mexico City after DeBoni's body was exhumed. Released on July 19, 2022, the third report concluded that her cause of death was asphyxiation, indicating she had been smothered. However, this examination found no evidence of sexual assault, directly contradicting the second autopsy's conclusions. The conflicting reports and shifting narratives only deepened public outrage and intensified criticism over how poorly DeBoni Escobar's case was handled. As of 2024, her murder remains unsolved, and Mexico continues to grapple with the failures surrounding her death. The nation was left stunned when her body was discovered inside a tank at the Nueva Castilla Motel, a location that had been searched multiple times. Many questioned how she could have gone unnoticed for 13 days and why authorities initially claimed there were no security cameras, only to later release hours of footage. These contradictions fueled suspicions of serious errors, or worse, deliberate interference in the investigation. In January 2023, 2 hotel employees, Ana Luisa N. and Alida Urith N., were formally charged with providing false information and attempting to obstruct the investigation, further complicating the case. The motel itself gained infamy after a human skeleton was found nearby just months after DeBoni's death, earning it the nickname the Motel of Death in local media. Despite footage showing Deboni entering the premises alone before vanishing, the exact circumstances of her death remain unclear. The investigation revealed that the motel had a troubling history and was far from the safe or routine establishment it appeared to be. Despite ongoing outrage and efforts to uncover the truth, many critical questions about Deboni Escobar's death remain unanswered. Who was responsible for killing her? Where was she during the 13 days she was missing? Why did the driver abandon her on a stretch of road known as the Highway of Death? And what role, if any, did the motel staff play in her disappearance and death? The case has drawn comparisons to the mysterious death of Elisa Lam at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. In both instances, young women were found dead under bizarre circumstances at hotel properties, sparking confusion, controversy, and intense public interest. Deboni's tragic death has since become a grim symbol of Mexico's escalating femicide crisis. Just weeks before she vanished, she had taken part in a women's march protesting gender-based violence. According to her father, Mario Escobar, she joined the demonstration to help others and stand up for justice. In a heartbreaking twist, the young woman who raised her voice for change ultimately became a victim of the very violence she sought to fight. Her brutal death stands as a haunting reminder of the dangers many women in Mexico continue to face.